was the evening of September 11th, 2025, on Avenue Q in Galveston, Texas. The sun had barely slipped away when the quiet street was torn apart by the sound of gunfire. At 7:56 p.m., frantic 911 calls poured in. Neighbors described multiple shots, a scream, and then silence. When officers arrived, they found 34-year-old Tiamoya Moore lying across her front porch, bleeding from several gunshot wounds. She was rushed to the hospital, but within minutes, she was gone. Detectives locked down the scene. A gun was recovered. Witnesses said someone had run from the house, but their stories were fragmented, uncertain. And that left one burning question hanging over the neighborhood. What really happened that night on Avenue Q? To understand the magnitude of what happened that September night, we need to step back and look at the life of Tiamoya Moore. She was born and raised in Lamaca, Texas, and became known for her generosity. Friends and relatives said she would give you the shirt off her back if you needed it. She had faced struggles of her own, but worked to rebuild her life, centering it around her faith and her children. At 34 years old, she was the mother of 5, balancing the demands of raising a family with an unshakable devotion to those around her. Relatives described her as someone who had turned her life around, relying on her spiritual foundation as both guide and strength. For her siblings, cousins, and neighbors, she was more than a daughter or sister. She was a pillar of stability, the kind of person whose presence made others feel secure. Family members recall her laughter carrying through gatherings.
I ain't never seen a dog scared of foil. Get off the couch. You scared? He is so scared of foil. Get off my couch.
The way she welcomed everyone, and how fiercely she loved her children. That is why her sudden death was so devastating. For those who knew her, the idea that violence could reach her doorstep was unthinkable. But as the investigation would soon reveal, the source of that violence was even more unthinkable. Among the 5 children of Tiamoya Moore, one stood out. Her daughter, who as a little girl often appeared in her mother's TikTok videos. Those clips showed laughter, dancing, and playful moments between them.
I gotta think of a way to get this money back tomorrow.
To anyone watching, it looked like a portrait of closeness, a mother and child who shared joy together. But as years passed, something shifted. That once visible bond seemed to grow quieter, less certain. No one outside the home can say exactly when or why. Sometimes the challenges of adolescence, the search for independence, or private struggles create rifts that outsiders never see. What is clear is that the relationship between mother and daughter was layered. A mix of love, conflict, and the pressures of growing up. And it is within that space, somewhere between childhood closeness and teenage distance, that the seeds of a tragedy may have begun to take root. At 7:56 p.m., Galveston's 911 dispatch lit up. Call after call came in from Avenue Q. One neighbor said they counted at least 5 shots. Another reported seeing a shadow bolt from the porch and vanish into the night. Police units rushed the 5100 block within minutes. Officers found the front door ajar, the porch smeared with blood. On the steps lay 34-year-old Tiamoya Moore, gravely wounded. Paramedics fought to stabilize her as she was loaded into an ambulance, but within the hour doctors pronounced her dead. The scene was sealed off with crime tape. Shell casings scattered across the porch told investigators it wasn't a single shot fired in rage, it was multiple rounds, deliberate and brutal. Inside the home, nothing suggested a break-in, no ransacked rooms, no forced entry. Detectives began canvassing witnesses. Some thought they saw a figure sprinting down the block. Others swore they recognized the shape but hesitated to say more. Their accounts didn't line up, leaving investigators with fragments instead of answers. And then came a chilling discovery, a firearm, still warm from use, tucked just feet away from the porch. It was quickly logged as evidence, but the bigger question loomed: who had pulled the trigger, and why? As officers worked the scene, one thing was certain. The answers weren't going to come easily. And before the night was over, the case would twist in a direction few could have imagined. As detectives sifted through shell casings and neighbors replayed the chaos in their minds, the search for the shooter was already underway. Patrol cars swept through surrounding blocks, scanning alleys and side streets. Every second mattered. Then, in a moment that stunned even seasoned officers, the figure witnesses claimed had run from the house suddenly came back. She wasn't dragged in by police dogs. She didn't stumble out of hiding. She walked straight back toward the crime scene, where flashing lights still painted Avenue Q in red and blue. It was Tiamoya Moore's 16-year-old daughter. Officers moved quickly. She was taken into custody without resistance.
Tragedy unfolding in a neighborhood in Galveston. Police say a 16-year-old is accused of shooting and killing her own mother. And now investigators are trying to figure out why. The shooting happened just before 8 o'clock last night at a home on Avenue Q near 52nd Street.
No struggle, no explanation. Just a teenager returning to the very place where her mother had been gunned down only moments before. The arrest didn't answer questions, it only deepened them. Why had she fled? And why had she come back? What had gone so wrong between mother and daughter that it ended with bullets on a front porch? For investigators, the case had shifted from a search for a faceless suspect to a tragedy lodged deep within the walls of a family home. And for the community of Galveston, the realization was chilling. The violence hadn't come from outside, it had come from within. In the days after the arrest, the silence from investigators left space for speculation. And speculation quickly filled the air in Galveston. Some whispered that the teenager may have been using drugs, that her behavior had spiraled in the weeks leading up to the shooting. Others pointed to the pressures of adolescence, mental health struggles, anger that built quietly until it erupted. A few suggested that ongoing tension in the home might have played a role, conflicts that outsiders never saw. But at this point, none of it is confirmed. Detectives have not released details about motive, and because of her age, much of the daughter's personal history remains protected under law. What is known is that a mother's life was taken, and a daughter now sits accused of ending it. Everything else, the why, remains locked behind unanswered questions. As the investigation moves forward, the community is left to wonder. Was this a case of hidden trauma, drug use, untreated mental health struggles, or something else entirely? For now, the truth has not been spoken. And until it is, the theories will swirl, leaving everyone to wait for answers that may never come in full. The arrest of a 16-year-old daughter for the death of her mother left Galveston reeling. On Avenue Q, what was once an ordinary family home was now marked by crime scene tape and unanswered questions. The family described Tiamoya Moore as someone who would do anything for her children. They spoke of her as deeply spiritual and supportive, a woman who had worked hard to turn her life around and build a better future for her family. For relatives, the tragedy was almost too heavy to process. How could a mother devoted to her children end up dying at the hands of one of them? That contradiction left them searching for meaning in a situation that seemed impossible to explain. In the community, the sense was much the same: shock, confusion, and the uneasy knowledge that the full truth of what happened inside that home on September 11th, 2025 has yet to be revealed.
Have you noticed any previous issues at the home?
No.
That's what makes the shooting all the more surprising for neighbor Graciela Molina, who lives across the street. She says she was checking her mail last night when she heard yelling.
She was screaming. She was screaming. And I hear boom, 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 boom. Like, I hear 5.
A mother's life was cut short. A teenager's life is now suspended in a justice system that may decide her future before it has fully begun. The facts of that night remain under investigation. The motive is unknown, but what's left in plain sight is a cautionary truth. The distance between childhood innocence and unimaginable violence can be shorter than anyone wants to believe. And as Galveston waits for answers, one question refuses to fade. What really happened that night on Avenue Q? If you want to follow more stories like this one, stories that dig into the crimes, the questions and the truths that haunt families and communities, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next case.